And then I met my buddy Kevin, who's a black dude. And you know stories that we've heard about like the seed of Cain
Yeah.
and the whole story in heaven. Like, do you have that story growing up? The whole
Oh yeah.
story of like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
sitting on the
Sitting
fence
on the
story.
fence.
And I tell him the whole story that you and I both know. And I'm like, did you grow up hearing that? He was like, fuck no. And then he went for some music thing and then he turned gay and left. That was literally that was the conversation. He was like worried that I was going to go gay or something or leave the community. I was like, no, I believe.
I
And I
mean,
did.
I
Yeah,
mean,
clearly.
you laugh, so
Yeah. And
he was
he's like, you're
probably
going to start
right.
He's like, you're going to wear short sleeves. Like, but I think subconsciously I wanted to give myself better prospects of getting a wife that wasn't a Wayman.
Yeah,
And
you were
so,
just after a Timpson wife.
exactly. And so I
Welcome,
asked,
everybody. This is the Jaden Jeffs Podcast. I left the FLDS cult, and now I'm doing a podcast. Today I have Calvin Wayman with me. He came from kind of the FLDS, but a group in Centennial called The Work, right? Calvin, do you have anything to say? Introduce yourself.
I believe that the prophet is true, that Book of Mormon is true, and that Joseph Smith was called of God. And um, yeah, I think just to connect to what you're saying just now is because I'm on, like, I want to make the connection because a lot of people don't, like, the between where I come from, which is the work, and where you come from, which is the FLDS, were once the same thing. Like, people look at them as like separate things, but literally in our parents' generation, like my dad grew up with your dad
Yeah.
in Salt Lake. Like my dad would talk about Warren and stuff like that. So it was the same thing, and then there was a split in the '80s and stuff like that. And there's still a lot of people in my community that don't want to acknowledge that fact that they were the same thing. They're like, no, we don't want to have anything connected to the Warren Jeffs religion. But yeah, it's the same, and we both come from, in my opinion, one of the wildest. You and I both come from one of the wildest stories that has ever happened in human history, which is Mormonism. From the very beginning till now, it's just from a human level, it's bonkers.
Yeah, it is. So you were raised there before this, totally after the split, right?
After the split, yep, because I was born in '87.
Yeah. So for
So
everybody
the
that
split already
doesn't know,
happened.
in 1987, I think, is that when the split happened?
I think some
1982?
people say, I think '85 actually, some like right before I
Okay.
was born. Yeah.
Yeah, like almost half the people from the FLDS left, and some of them went and started new groups. And I think
Yep.
yeah, that's what you're part of.
Yep.
And really, they're really similar. But the split was actually, I think, about the apostles. You
Yep.
know, the people that left wanted a group of apostles to decide different situations, and our group decided that it was just one dude. And
Totally.
just a few years later, it wrecked everything. So,
Yeah, we use that as justification growing up that we were the right group
uh-huh.
because Warren really showed what happens when it gets a little bit too culty. I mean, it's still culty in mine, but
Yeah.
it's just several dudes controlling the cultiness and not just one.
Yeah. So over there in Centennial, did you, what year were you born?
87.
Okay. So over there in Centennial, did you guys wear all the long dresses like we did? Uh, have all the
Good
hair?
question. Yeah, it was different. So even though our group was technically headquartered in Centennial, which is basically Colorado City. Like the airport that's right there is still considered the Colorado City airport, but it's in Centennial or it's like on the outskirts.
Yeah.
Even though it was there, I actually grew up in Salt Lake City or a
Oh, you
suburb of
did?
Salt Lake City in Riverton, Utah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, my family, my grandfather, who was one of the cult leaders, one of the apostles, he lived in Salt Lake. It was considered like some sacred prophecy that he was fulfilling um, by us staying there. So, what's interesting is we, as Waymans, in some ways, we were closer to you guys. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we were close. Like the rest of the community in the work wasn't as conservative in their dress as we were. So some people would, I mean, always modest, body covered. There were people that were really gentilish because they wore pants as women. That was
Uh-huh.
considered gentilish. But my dad was pretty hardcore into it. Like I remember my dad would give credit to you guys because he's like,
Okay.
they actually have a closer way of how we should be dressing. But my sisters always wore dresses, just not quite prairie dresses. I remember my dad blowing a lid because sometimes my sisters would have bangs and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that was considered like really worldly to have bangs instead of having their hair up and stuff like that. But you guys definitely had a more distinct look. But if you look at old pictures of us kids when we were really young, I think some would say, oh, there's definitely crossover. That I mean, my sisters cringe when they look at themselves when they were really
Yeah.
young because they're like, oh, look at us little polig kids. Which you guys had
So,
that term too, right? Polig kids?
yeah.
Yeah.
Plug kids, monocogs. You know?
Monog is like, do people realize that was a slur in your upbringing, right? Like
Yeah,
you,
like uh, people would come by the crick. This is what people that were there told me. They would come by and call them plig pigs, and they would reply with monocogs.
yep, yep,
So,
yeah.
do you
Everybody in the
know the
outside words were
Bardos?
Monogs. Dude, I am part Barlow.
Well, I mean, they're not part of the group, but they basically live right there by Centennial.
What I never talked to them,
A bunch of
which
my
is
sisters
fascinating.
are over there.
Oh, they are now.
Yeah.
But how often did they talk when?
Oh, they didn't. No.
Totally. This is something that I wish more people understood about fundamentalist Mormonism, and and I did an episode on my podcast with Sam Zitting,
Uh huh.
who's from the FLDS, because Sam Zitting and I are first cousins, but we never connected with each other because of fear of damnation. And so, even though Barlows are literally related to me, my grandmother was a Barlow. Like half of my bloodline is Barlow, and they were in Centennial Park.
Uh huh.
We one street over, because they were not in the religion, they thought and believed differently. I almost didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm kind of at odds with those guys because I think it's unfair how they uh, married a bunch of my sisters. So
Oh, did
I'm
they?
gonna be talking about that a little bit more probably coming up, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely at odds. But one victory I had, or I feel like it's a victory for me. My youngest sister was there, and she chose to come away. My youngest
Yeah.
full sister. Anyway, if that hadn't happened, I think I'd probably just make a video every week about them.
Yeah. Because you'd be so annoyed. Honestly, I think our group, by the way, I don't know if well, I was going to say maybe half of the FLDS left, but it wasn't, definitely all of it didn't become Centennial. Centennial was probably 10% of whatever the FLDS was when it split off. But I think there probably are people within the FLDS that are older than us, like your dad, Warren Jeffs, and
Yeah.
others age that are pissed at people in the work because I know that we sort of like the people that started the Centennial, sort of pulled out women early on as
Oh,
well so that polygamy could continue. And I've done a little bit of digging, and I think the same thing happened when the fundamentalist movement started, period. Like when it started it with the break off from the LDS church,
yeah.
Charles Zitting, like who were some of the other early ones? Yes, John Taylor, but
Joseph
after that,
Musser.
Joseph Musser. Like they pulled out several women from the LDS church, convinced them so that polygamy can continue.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
yeah, it's sort of been a pattern that has continued, and so it sounds
Yeah.
like the
So,
Barlows did the same thing.
so how was your life growing up? Did you guys play a lot? What did you guys do from like when you were really young? You know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to contrast it to my life,
With
kind
yours,
of.
yeah, because in yours, play wasn't really allowed. I think what we're going to find with yours and my upbringing is I always tell people that cultiness is on a spectrum.
Yeah.
It's not just black and white. I think it's probably going to be like yours, but just not as bad or
Uh-huh.
not as culty. So we could play sports, um, like basketball and stuff like that, but never with people outside of our family.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
homeschooled, um, and work was definitely idolized, and play
Mm-hmm.
was demonized sometimes as like a frivolous activity. I remember sometime when I was a teenager going to visit the mountains with there was like several people from the community in the mountains at some resort. Snowbird is what it's called. And I met several kids there that were like the prophet's kids, John Timpson's kids, who is
Oh, okay.
like the main leader in the work. And except we don't call him the prophet like you guys did. We call him the president of priesthood.
Hmm.
But several of his kids talked about being there at Snowbird for like a week. And I remember it blowing my mind
Hmm.
because it was not work. It was just for play.
Yeah.
So it definitely was like we didn't do it very often. Like I grew up never camping. Like we never did anything
Hmm.
like camping. My dad never wanted us to get skateboards, but I think that was mostly because he was afraid of the medical bills if somebody fell on him. And I had plenty of got into like trouble, like breaking not bones, but I would get my head split open by falling out of a tree or something like that. Enough when I was younger, and so we didn't do that. And my grandfather as well was very much into work crews, even when the community was in the middle of doing like a community fair. My grandfather wanted his sons and grandsons to still continue working all through that and pour concrete and stuff like that in the community while everybody else was taking it off so that they knew how, faithful we were, that we weren't taking the time off. So,
So
yeah, it
when your group split off, who was the leader?
okay. So, do you mind if I give a little a thing of what led
Yeah.
to the split? Okay. So, at the time, your father was not in leadership yet, but your
Oh
grandfather
no.
was.
Right.
So, your grandfather, Rulon Jeffs, and then, of course, the person that everybody loves in
Leroy
my
Johnson.
side, Leroy Johnson. It's so interesting you even knew that before I said it. So he was the main person in charge. There were a couple little rascals in the leadership uh, at that time, and they were outspoken, to say the least. They gave their opinion. They believed what they believed. They were not people that were just going to follow somebody because they said it. And those names were Alma Timpson and J.M. Hammond.
Yeah. J.
They were
Marion Hammond.
apostles. J. Marion Hammond and Alma Timpson were apostles just as much as Roland Jeffs was, and in their opinion, just as much as Leroy Johnson was.
Yes.
And so there's this thing in Mormon doctrine. It's called the one man doctrine. That's really what this ended
Yeah.
up being named, right?
Yeah. The one
Where
man rule.
the one man rule, where who is in charge, and there was this two different factions of thought. One group was only one person's in charge. Joseph Smith was in charge of everything else. But then there was the other faction of people that, like, the other people are just helpers, almost like wives to a husband. And
Right.
go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like this. One man is ordained by God to hold the keys of priesthood. And in the FLDS, we believe God himself ordains that prophet.
And
And
what are the other guys?
and the other guys are apostles, but they're not the Lord's
Key
representative
holder.
on the earth.
Right.
Like
It's not the key holder.
Jesus didn't come and lay his hands on their heads. That's what the FLDS believe about Leroy Johnson and Ruthen Jeffs. So basically, the people, Alma Timpson and these guys, they believed that the apostles should work together in a group to make
Yep,
decisions.
that's right.
And it's not that the FLDS didn't believe that, but they believed that one person was the key holder and
Right.
was senior and held the ultimate authority, and other people didn't really have the ability to question him.
Totally. Yeah, and the way we were raised is they did that. They were each one of them was called of God, and the only reason there is a Leroy Johnson or eventually a Roland Jeffs or eventually a Warren Jeffs is God is a God of order, and so humans are humans, and they might have if power gets too consolidated, it may not be a good thing. So it's like a checks and a balances as well, but they all hold the keys, and because God is a God of order, it makes sense for one of them to be in charge. Like that's sort of how it was viewed. Um, and we had our rationalizations of how it's happened from Jesus to Joseph Smith and all the way through. But yeah, just to wrap up how the split off happened, not Roland Jeffs, Leroy Johnson essentially flexed his profit muscles and kicked out the two dudes that weren't on board with the idea that you're talking about, that there's only one on the earth that
Yes,
holds the keys.
and I have the sermon, of him, you know, and so like,
You have
you
it?
can read it. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's in his
have you
sermons.
have you listened to it?
I don't know if I have the audio, but I'm pretty sure
I
it's
have
somewhere.
I have the audio. I
Yeah.
haven't listened to it for years. I need to do this, but I have audio. I think I have the audio of every single church and funeral that has ever happened in the FLDS from
Yeah.
its founding of Short Creek to almost until Warren being kicked out. Somebody compiled
Wow.
it and gifted it to me. Like I have
Yeah.
so much, and I
Yeah.
found it once. Do you remember the date? And we don't have to do it now, but like if you want to tell me if you knew what the actual date was where he kicks them off, it'd be really interesting because I want to go listen to it.
I'm pretty sure it's 1978. So,
Okay,
anyway, so why did you guys look at Leroy Johnson as a special person if he kicked you out?
that was a test. That was just a test.
What?
So yeah, that
That's
was a test
crazy.
for everybody else. So Leroy
Oh,
Johnson was still the president of priesthood. You guys have the story of the 1886 episode, right?
oh yeah.
And how and why that was needed. So it's very similar to that. So for people that may not know, the LDS Church. I mean, we were all part of the LDS Church at one point. That's the other thing is people like the
Right.
LDS Church very much tries to separate us all and say that there's no connection. But without the LDS Church, there is no Warren Jeffs. There is
Right.
no John Timpson. There's no this. I won't get into all the history, but polygamy is a big issue culturally. I'll connect it to why we still believed in Leroy Johnson. We have this story in fundamentalism that when the LDS Church signs the manifesto that does away with polygamy, there's this special group of people that are set apart to continue the work of God
Yes.
through the authority of John Taylor,
Right.
right?
And they're supposed to live polygamy.
Yes. Supposed to live polygamy and see to it that not a year passes without children being born under the new and everlasting covenant of marriage. Polygamy.
Yes.
And again, I just have to point out, I love that you know all these details because so many people in where I come from do not realize how connected your church is to mine.
Uh-huh.
And it's crazy how we have the same stories and they like, hey, we're a Grand Canyon apart, but it's not the case. Like it's so similar. We very much believed in giving deference and respect to anybody that ever held or does hold the apostleship position. In fact, if you were ever going to criticize it, it is probably your first step to apostasy. And that is the first step to damning your soul.
So you guys even believe that Ruth and Jeffs had the apostleship,
Yep. Yep.
but not really
Yep.
Warren and Jeffs.
Yes, exactly. So, just as it was believed that God tested the saints in 1886 and he let them believe a lie that the LDS Church was true, and then had
Okay.
a small group of people continue. That same thing happened when when Leroy Johnson kicked out kicked out Alma Timpson and J.M. Hammond. So the way we viewed it is that we got kicked out so that the work could continue on. We could continue on the correct way. And all y'all were like the LDS Church before, that you were given a lie. You were like this Bible story or Book of Mormon story that where people wanted a king and stuff like that. And so because you couldn't separate God and priesthood from man, and so you sort of deified Leroy Johnson. And so, but in my upbringing, I grew up hearing Brother Johnson's sermons. Like my
Oh,
dad would have we had all of the sermons, and so my dad would do like Sunday schools and like Wednesday classes. For some reason, we would do it on Wednesday nights, where he would read Leroy Johnson's sermons and Roland Jeffs, your grandfather.
wow. Wow.
So we grew up having a ton of respect for Leroy Johnson and your grandfather because they were they were ordained the correct way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
Um,
until the split happened where anything that happened after that on your side was invalid as far as
so,
we were
so
taught.
was Alma Timpson the president?
There we go. That's right. Alma Timpson was now the president. So
And then
Leroy
did he
Johnson dies.
ordain his son?
Yep, exactly. So Leroy Johnson dies. Roland Jeffs dies. You guys go off and do your thing. Now Centennial's in full force, and J.M. Hammond also dies. And so there's only one person. And this is like when you're growing up in this, it's like scary because it's like, whoa, there's one person left that holds it all. And if he were to die, we like my sense growing up is like all of Earth would go away.
Yeah.
Because the only reason God is the reason the destructions haven't come yet is because of this one person, this one prophet, this guy, Alma Timpson. And he tries to bring somebody else into the council, some Naylor guy, and then that actually ends up creating a split within our split. So there's a whole other group there. And then he ends up calling his sons Alma Timpson or John Timpson and Claude Colley, and that creates a big other split because people are like, "Wait, that's too suspicious. You're just calling your sons." And then the story comes out that it's like, no, in fact, the Naylor guy that I called, that was just me looking for help. God called these men, and so it was really talked that it's like these men are truly called. And so then he called, 6 men. He called John Timpson, Claude Colley, Calvin Wayman. That's my grandfather who is now deceased. Jed Hammond, who is still alive. Joseph Knudsen, who is still alive, is like the wealthiest and probably the most Warren Jeffs like, at least in terms of like number of wives and stuff in the community. And then Lauren Zitting, who I'm also related to. And Lauren Zitting is also passed. And they've since added on a couple more. So there's a guy, Richard Timpson, that is John Timpson's son. And then there's this guy, Ephraim Hammond, that I believe is the son of J.M. Hammond, if I'm not mistaken.
I see.
He's at least related, son or
Yeah.
grandson.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast these factions can happen.
You mean the splits?
Yeah. They're with
It's so
and
interesting.
that's another reason all those apostles were really careful with ordaining new people. All the ones around Leroy Johnson, even though they split up, they were all really careful with ordaining people, because they
Because they're
knew,
giving him power or whatever.
yeah, yeah, if one of those guys lays hands on your head, you can basically start something.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's been a lot from you guys, and since then too, because there was like the Blackmore split too from you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So they went up in Canada and did their thing.
And that dude has like 300 kids or something.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
really interesting.
yeah, tell me more about growing up. Like, did you guys wear
Yeah.
long underwear?
I wore long underwear until the day I left when I was 30.
Was it like one piece?
One piece, yeah.
Oh my
Usually from.
God.
Did you never wear it, or did
Oh, I
you?
did. I
Okay.
wore it every day till I left.
So
Out there
wild.
sweating.
Out there sweating on a construction site, even if it was over 100 degrees.
Long sleeve.
If somebody was like, "Why are you wearing long sleeves?" We had some sort of reason. We had to tell them. It was like, this we're not going to get skin cancer, or it keeps you cool because you're sweating. No, it was so. Yeah, I grew up on a farm, so suburb of Salt Lake, and so we grew our own vegetables. I milked a cow every morning. Um, I have 44 siblings, and we all grew up in one house. So we all just
How many
lived there.
how many mothers or wives did your dad
Four,
have? Four.
four. So each of them had 11 to 13 kids each.
Yeah, and there's something about growing up on a farm that kind of saves you from becoming crazy in these situations. It's super
Hmm.
realistic. I feel like that really helped me anyway. Like
Yeah, say more about
hands
that.
on, hands on, like, okay, I have a little bit of an idea with the Kingstons. They're all these business computer people, and I feel like they're just mentally getting a little out of
You think
hand.
that's why the our friend Amanda Ray's group,
Yeah.
that's where she comes from, is they didn't have anything to keep them busy, so then they married their siblings. they, they
Something's
went a little
going
bit
on.
crazy.
I
Yeah,
don't know. The men over there seem to be super controlling. Like there's stories
yeah.
about a lot of them where the men literally make their wife who has 17 kids pay them rent,
Mm,
and they're working for their business.
yeah,
It's insane. A lot of that kind of stuff. I don't know.
yeah. It is
Anyway, so
insane. I mean, all of it's insane.
it's all insane.
One
I
thing that
don't
I
I don't mean to make it sound like the Kingstons are worse. I just feel like
no,
like doing
I
that where I feel like
no, it is weird.
their men have kind of become like kind of weak. I don't know, making the
No, I
women pay
think
them rent. Like what the fuck?
some of that's happening in Centennial.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to name names, but
Yeah.
I have a family member that I'm related to that we hung out together when I was there, and she's married to a prominent person
Mm-hmm.
in the community. She has a couple kids. She left her relatively good paying job to be a mom.
The police are getting a little close.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to.
I think.
That's what happened. They're
How
coming to
many
get
wives do you
us.
have over there?
Exactly. Here in New York. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I lived here long enough that I don't even notice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting because she's married to someone that's prominent, so she's like I want to say sixth wife or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he is building a new house, and so instead of like paying for her, he basically told her and his other wives that, yeah, you need to make this much money, and it's a significant amount of money, and
Mm-hmm.
then pay me for the new house. It's just
Wow.
it's just really wild to me. And the other thing too, because you're not wrong, it is weird, but I think one thing I've noticed is there's this habit that humans have. We had it. I see it in the FLDS, and I'm sure the Kingstons have it too, where for some reason it's really easy for us to notice other people's
Yeah.
stuff and we don't know it. And this is not a thing on you. Like, this is just human
No.
nature.
No, I totally
And
agree.
the perfect example is us with you guys, because
Mm-hmm.
there are people in my upbringing that if they even see me talking to you on content or something online where I'm in any way suggesting that our community is sort of like connected, they throw fits because they feel that no, obviously Warren Jeffs group is culty. Obviously the Kingston group is culty. Obviously these other groups are culty, but we're normal.
Yeah. I know. I remember a few years before I left, I was with my brothers and we were talking about people being brainwashed. And we were like, these guys, they are so brainwashed. Those guys, they are so brainwashed. What is that? Like, how are they
Right.
so brainwashed? That's so insane. And here we are, like,
I
everything's
know.
normal.
It's something so interesting because what is normal? Normal is what you're familiar with.
You grow up on this farm, what happens as you get older? You get the priesthood at 12, right?
If you're worthy.
Were you
So
ready?
I got the priesthood when I was 14.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I can't have somebody like that around me. I'm just kidding.
That's not worthy enough. No, I got it. No, it was sort of
Okay.
like again, we sort of made fun of any other group, and we definitely made fun of the LDS Church about ordaining somebody just because they turned an age.
Yeah.
It was, that was a big deal. They sort of, my dad was just like, "Are you fully ready?" And that's such a big deal. That like, to get the priesthood, because your dad, the priesthood, your file leader, is how you advance in life, and so it's just wild for me to like reflect back on that time on like how you have to like I look at kids with their dads now, and it makes me think I don't think I really had a dad. Like I bet you
Sure.
didn't either. Like in a
No.
way, because if you look at how dads are with their kids, where you just feel completely safe to be yourself. Like I see this with some kids. I'm not saying everybody has this situation, but where the dad has full, uh, just unconditional love for their
Yeah.
kids, no matter what. Instead, it was sort of like your probation officer in a way, where you have to
Sure.
make sure that you're being good. And that's how it felt at that age. It was different when I was really little. When I was really little, before I was old enough to sin, you know, at 8 years old, which I'm sure you got as well. That's the age of accountability. Like things were great because I couldn't be damned. But at the age of like 12, 13, 14, it was like walking on eggshells to just make sure that my dad knew that I was good enough so that he would recommend me to get the priesthood. But yeah, I got it when
Yeah,
I was 14.
100%. 100%. That's how it was for me too. I went through this whole process. I was almost 13. I was getting a little worried. Some of
Ooh,
my some of my friends have got the priesthood and I felt like, I was really trying to be good and dad wasn't giving me the priesthood, but ultimately, I managed to qualify, so that was
good for
nice.
you.
But
It freaked me out too because I haven't thought about this in like more than 20 years, maybe 30 years, was what I'm about to say. Well, not quite 30 because I'm almost 38. But I got baptized November 3rd. My birthday is November 1st. So I got baptized 2 days after my birthday. So I thought I was a good kid. And so it sort of messed with me a little bit. It's like, wait, am I good? Like, what have I? Because I'm sort
okay.
of like not getting the priesthood and stuff like that. But the only thing that made it make somewhat sense is you guys have like the different Aaronic priesthood,
Yeah.
like things like Aaronic priesthood, and then you
Surely
become a priest,
that's the
a
same there.
deacon, priest. What is it?
It's a
Deacon,
deacon,
priest.
teacher,
Ah,
priest, elder.
deacon, teacher, priest, elder. So I was never a deacon. I was
Okay.
like directly into teacher or
Okay.
priest, something like that. Or I was started out as a deacon and I skipped teacher and went directly to priest, something like that. So I made up ground somewhere in my teens
Sweet.
where I was like, okay, I'm still doing all right because I just skipped a grade or something.
Yeah. All right. So, how's life as a teenager? You getting in
I
trouble or
think
not really? You a good kid?
I'm such a good kid.
Good. Me too. I
I,
was so good. It was insane.
in
Can't believe I'm not
retrospect,
still there.
yeah, yeah, that you fell away.
Yeah,
In
with how faithful
retrospect,
I was.
yeah, in retrospect, I think this is where it goes off the rails and where it gets sad because I think it's where you no longer get to be a human and your normal human development gets shamed, really. So when I'm a teenager, like, first of all, every human goes through like puberty and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's probably hard to communicate how afraid you start to get around that age over something as simple as, what if I accidentally kiss a girl?
Mm-hmm.
So I made the promise to myself, because we were taught, like, arranged marriage. You grew up with arranged marriages as well, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
arranged marriage was the standard, and you want that arranged marriage
Yeah.
because getting the arranged marriage is just like getting the priesthood and getting the baptism. It shows that you're worthy, shows that you're good. And so you want to protect yourself and keep yourself clean. And the thing with something like kissing somebody or having sex, heaven forbid, we were taught that there are some sins that can't be repented of. That no
Yes.
matter what, good.
And fornication was a big one.
There we go. Yep.
So yeah, if you're gonna kiss a girl, what's that gonna lead to? Like,
Hmm.
look.
Exactly. So I made a promise to myself when I was 15 that I was not going to ever even kiss a girl until I was married to her. So teenagers was a lot of just trying to stay on the straight and narrow, and getting rid of any urges that I could, and just trying to be a genuine good boy. It's where I really started to believe it. In fact, I believed it my entire life. But
Right.
when I'm a teenager, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, that's when I'm reading the most,
You're
believing
having a
it the most.
spiritual awakening.
Hmm. I'm getting a testimony. I'm deepening my testimony of the truthfulness of the work, a testimony of the prophets. I'm yeah, at that time I'm like all in. I was called on to speak in church when I was 17, which was a big deal. No, but I was the youngest person in my family to be called on to speak. And I get up and I'm like, yeah, like I was the first speaker of that meeting, and I was like, I'm just so grateful that we are born in the one true church, that we're the ones that have the priesthood, because we know the Kingstons don't have it. We know that Warren Jeffs group doesn't have it. Your dad wasn't even in jail yet. Um, but we have the one true church, and I'm just so grateful because I got to have all these blessings, and I've already had all the like blessings in my life, and I'm born through all this and stuff like that. And yeah, I basically bore my testimony for the truthfulness of it at 17. Like I was so in it. I was so in it. I believed it. Every detail of it. I was so in it.
Yeah, I would describe like my becoming a teenager really similar, like 13, 14, 15, getting more and more spiritual, getting more and more into it, reading way more. It's not like there's these wild teenagers. No, it's like these guys are becoming faithful. And this is how,
Uh-huh.
they believe this is how you raise men of God, right? And so
Uh-huh.
that's what they want to see from teenagers.
Yeah.
What you did, what I did, that's exactly what they want to see, right?
I couldn't imagine that there were kids in the outside world that were like doing things like drinking alcohol and getting in trouble. I remember one of our neighbors saying something like, "You guys are such good kids. You're so
Mm-hmm.
good. Like these other guys are doing this stuff." And I remember it breaking my brain as like a 17-year-old being like, but along these times, there was some other things though around teenage years where I think it probably came from just being adventurous, that I knew was out of line, and I knew it was probably a little bit sinful, but I was going to repent of it at some point.
Okay.
For example, again, where we were raised was disconnected from the rest of the community. The rest of the community was 4.5 hours away down in Short
Oh,
Creek,
yeah.
and we're living in Riverton, Utah. And my grandfather lives in Salt Lake City, but that's 30 minutes away. So
Mm-hmm.
we only have our own family to connect with. And you know how it can get with seeing the same fucking brothers every day and stuff like that. Like you sort of like crave some sort of newness. And that newness
Yeah.
for me was my closest friend and cousin, Richard. And he happened to live 5 minutes away. He was my first cousin. And so my rebellion as a teenager was sneaking off to hang out with Richard.
Okay.
And I knew it was wrong, but I figured that it was better than uh, telling my dad about it. And my dad had a very hot temper and didn't want to have him freak out. But I remember, because I know you guys probably didn't have music, so you probably don't. Do you know who Hillary Duff is? You
No.
know that name? Yeah, you wouldn't even know that. But like, so there were some things that I learned from Richard because his family was a little bit more worldly, but not insane. But they would listen to the radio, and so I would listen to a little bit to the radio. Uh, Richard and I both loved this Disney singer called Hillary Duff, and so I remember for his birthday or for mine, I had got some money and I bought a Hillary Duff CD and snuck out and showed him. Like these were things that I knew for a fact I couldn't ask my dad permission for. So I felt like compelled to do that. But I also remember around this age, my cousin Richard got a job working as a lawnmower mechanic, fixing lawnmowers. And I went and picked him up from work because he didn't have a vehicle. So my dad, my dad was okay with like helping out and stuff like that. So I went and picked him up, and then we did something super rebellious. We went to Little Caesars, we got a pizza, and then we parked in front of a park and ate the pizza together. And I have this memory that it is so it's so innocent, and I just remember sitting there and the clock was ticking because my dad knew that I was gone to pick up Richard, so we couldn't be there for too long. But I don't know why I asked. Maybe because I started to at 17, I was now working on my dad's construction site more often and stuff like that. But I remember sitting there in this white pickup truck eating a pepperoni pizza with Richard, just looking out at the park and seeing other kids and then asking, "Do you think this is normal? Do you think other kids have to sneak out to hang out with each other?" Like how interesting, like now in retrospect. I just remember asking us having a conversation about that. Do you think other kids have to sneak out to hang out? Like the idea of having close friends that you are seeing every day in school, like it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was all in. And so I had some risky behavior like that where, but again, I remember for Richard's birthday, I think for his 17th or 18th birthday, uh, we didn't celebrate birthdays. I don't think you guys did either, right?
Yeah, we didn't.
So one thing that we did do, which was a big credit to my mom, who was the main school teacher, through being very as long as we're being supervised, we went to the public library and when I was young because we were homeschooled and like we would go get books and like check them out
Oh,
and
okay.
even some nature DVDs and that sort of thing. But I remember when my cousin Richard was turning 17 or 18 that I didn't feel like I could ask my dad, "Can I go hang out with Richard because it's his birthday?" Or I have a gift to give him even. So I remember lying and saying, "I have a nature DVD that I need to drop off at the Riverton Library," so that I could hurry up and get to Richard to wish him happy birthday and to give him a pair of sunglasses and a watch for his birthday. Like I snuck out to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
But that was just,
Well,
yeah,
guess you got to say happy birthday somehow.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Ah,
yeah, in your life, you got the Aaronic priesthood, and then you get the Melchizedek priesthood at 18?
yeah, 18 or 19, but really close. Yeah, I
Yeah.
ended up getting to
And
become an
then
elder.
were you looking forward to marriage or
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Uh, very much so. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I don't actually think I've talked about this on my show or any other show. Um, Probably because I think the detail people wouldn't get it as much. But so I really think that marriage and wanting to be married is probably what led me to doing something that nobody else in my family had done, and that is go to college.
hmm.
Um, my family, the Wayman family, it was known was not adored, let's say, in the community.
Yeah.
So Waymans were considered the black sheep
Oh, okay. Hmm.
because they lived away from everyone.
Oh, I
In
see.
fact, when Alma Timpson was a lone ranger, when he was the only apostle,
Yeah.
he had commanded everybody to gather to Zion. Everybody should gather to the crick. And
Yeah.
everybody did. Essentially everybody did. Except Waymans.
Okay.
I actually think, and people don't, I actually think that that's one of the reasons my grandfather ended up being called is because he stood a little bit of a ground. I don't think he would have been if otherwise, but that's a
Hmm.
different story. But there was something I was going to say around this. So because we were already the black sheep, I I think even subconsciously I was looking for a way to be more desirable, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the other thing too is the only girls that I knew I was first cousins with or they were aunts with, you know? And in fundamentalism, you sort of
How
you're
bad
you're not
is
even you're not even opposed to marrying somebody that's like a second or third cousin, but you don't
right?
want to like I
How
didn't want to
bad
be like
is
the
your
Kingstons.
incest?
It's not as bad. It's not that bad. There's a few people that married their first cousins, but for me, like it was kind of this was considered a progressive idea when I grew up. When I grew up, I did not want to marry anybody that had the same last name as me, whether they were first, second, or third cousin. I was
Yeah.
like, no, I want to marry somebody that's not related, ideally like a Timpson, because Timpsons were not related to me at all. And Timpsons also were like the top of the food chain in the community because,
Yeah.
Alma Timpson had it and stuff like that. And so subconsciously, even though I didn't fully make the decision then, I think that's why I wanted to go to college, is to help me with my marriage prospects. That maybe I would not have to wait till I was 30 to get married, and that maybe I would get married a little bit sooner because some Timpsons actually did go to college uh, in the community. Nobody in my family did, but several Timpsons actually, and Collies and others, did go to college. And so I wanted to be sort of stand outish, I think.
Yeah, but girls don't choose you there, right? So,
Well, they
I
actually
mean,
can. This is what's a little bit different.
okay.
So girls have some influence over who
Yeah,
they
yeah,
marry.
actually they do in the FLDS too.
How does it go?
Uh Probably not as much, but it goes like when the prophet brings you in to question you or whatever when you're ready to get married,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
then he'll just ask, "Do you have anybody in mind?"
Same
It
thing.
doesn't it doesn't mean you're going to get that person.
Same.
The
Totally.
prophet can say no. He can say like
Totally. Yep.
that was
Yep.
the devil that put
That was
that
the
dude
devil
in your
giving you
mind.
that. Or you'll give a name and they're like, well, let's pray about it. Let's see if that's
Yeah,
actually the guy. Same
exactly.
exact thing. See, again, like my church has no idea how connected we were in the same patterns, but literally the same thing. Literally the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, Dad pretty much just got everything from grandfather, and
Yeah.
he did everything the same as Alma Timpson and those guys. I mean,
Hmm.
grandfather and Alma Timpson were pretty good friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. But yeah, that's what happened. So college is where my world got pretty shaken.
So you weren't
But
married when you went to
no,
college. So you got
no,
the
I got married right
priesthood
after.
at 18
Hmm.
and then went to college. And
Yep.
how long did that take?
4 years.
Where did you
But
go?
I started off going to Salt Lake Community College and then ended up at the University of Utah. People ask all the time, "Did you go to the Mormon school?" But the BYU,
BYU?
you would have never gone to BYU. Nobody would have, right? Like, because you guys grew up distasting and not liking the Mormon Church, right?
Right, but in my day, nobody was going to college. Like
Yeah, nobody
maybe
in
a few people
FLDS.
that were
Yeah,
total rebels. I
yeah.
sure
If you're a
wasn't.
super, yeah, it was no, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to even suggest it. My dad was not happy about even the suggestion. In fact, maybe I'll share that and then I'll share the crack as to what, because,
What made you start?
yeah, because again, I knew I wanted to keep on learning and I was pretty freaking good at school. I loved school. I loved learning new things. I would invent math problems so that I could answer them myself. I really loved things like math and science because it felt concrete.
Sure.
And I ended up getting a high school diploma from home when I was still 16, maybe almost 17. And then worked in my dad's construction company for a while, realized I hated it. And
Was it
there,
concrete or what was it?
yeah, it was concrete, it was framing, it was demolition. I still have a scar somewhere on my eyebrow from like tearing a house down and then getting cut in the face. Like on my show on Cultured Boy, you talked about cutting your fingers. Like that happened all the time. Like I have a scar. I have a scar somewhere on my hand where I was like on a roof, like stapling sheets of plywood
Yeah.
down, and then they wouldn't go down all the way, so you'd like have to pound them with a hammer. And so you're
Right.
shooting, pounding, and then my hammer slips. I go to reach for the hammer, and I still had the trigger pulled, and I accidentally shot
Shoot
myself.
yourself.
And what's pretty bananas to me is I had a cell phone at this time that my dad didn't know I had, so I could call
Oh,
Richard and
really?
yep, yep. And I had I was now shot in the hand, and I couldn't call anyone. Couldn't call. I didn't dare call the doctor. I didn't
Yeah.
care call, dare call any of my brothers. My brothers knew I had a phone, because I couldn't let my dad know that I had a cell phone, even though I was
Yeah.
like, I think I would have been like 18 at that point. So what I then did is I went and knocked on somebody's door and been like, "Can I borrow your phone?"
Yeah.
and said, "Can you come back?" Because I was the only one on the job site and made my dad come back. But there was something I was going to say as far as the college thing. I think I was going to say like how they even let me go. Again, Wayman's. There was something very prideful about Wayman's and the rest of the community. I think we had a chip on our shoulder.
Okay.
And
There's a
and
little bit that way in the FLDS, I think, because there's Wayman's there.
okay. So the rest of the community went on missions. Did you guys go on missions?
No.
Okay.
What
So
kind of missions?
yeah, it's not like the church mission. The way that it is, you basically dedicate your life directly to the church for 2 years and do
Oh,
community service for free.
okay. Gotcha. Because you
FLDS is
guys,
doing that all the time anyway.
yeah, that's all you do.
And
You
so
do it for
that's
life.
yeah. And so that was my grandfather's attitude. So when I'm like 18 or 19, I actually very much wanted to go on a mission. But what that would have meant is I would have been shipped off from Salt Lake City down to the creek
Oh,
because
I
that's where
see.
guys went on missions, is for the community. My grandfather and other Waymans didn't like that idea because, and in fact, I don't think I've shared this detail on Cultured Boy, that before I went to college, I first went to my dad and said, "Can I go on a mission?" And he didn't like that
Okay.
idea.
That's
So then
crazy.
he said, "Go talk to grandfather." And I talked to grandfather and he said, no.
Did they feel
He
like you
said,
guys were better?
"Oh yeah.
Better
Yeah.
than the rest of the community?
100%. 100%."
He
Because
didn't
my
he didn't
grandfather
want
knew.
you having the bad influence of those boys down there.
Yeah. And it was like we didn't need it. He was like, we only had church once a month in Salt Lake. We felt like we were better than the rest of the community. The rest of the community needed all four churches. We only needed the one. Even though we went down to go to extra, we didn't need the other ones because my grandfather was connected to Roland Jeffs and Brother Johnson and Brother Guy Musser and these other men. Like he knew more than John Timpson and more than Clay and Claude Colley. He would never say those words out loud to other people. He said them to us. I have
Uh-huh.
audio recording because we would sit and listen and talk to him and take notes. And then my dad ended up getting a little recorder. I have audio recording that would probably blow so many people's mind because my grandfather was considered such a staunch supporter of the entire community. But he's basically saying in the audio recording how he has to teach John Timpson and Claude Colley how to do things the correct way, and that he like basically that we're a little bit better than them.
Sure.
But I asked if I could go to call or go to on a mission, and he says you already are on a mission, just like the
Yeah.
FLDS does. Like you go on work crews and stuff like that. And he kind of poo pooed it and was like, they have to do that because they're lazy or they have to go through some process, but you're already on a mission.
Yeah.
So I was bummed because again, I'm looking for ways to genuinely improve myself and learn life. And I didn't want to just do construction, but I think subconsciously I wanted to give myself better prospects of getting a wife that wasn't a Wayman.
Yeah,
And
you were
so,
just after a Timpson wife.
exactly. And so they turned me down on the mission thing. And time's passed. I'm like, frick, I'm not gonna go on a mission. I'm not gonna go on a mission. Shit. And I'm looking at everybody else, and I know my older brothers didn't get married till they were almost 30, and they're working in construction. I didn't want to work in construction. I didn't want to wait till I was 30 to get married. I hated working at my dad's construction company. I loved school. I'm going to go to college. I want to go to college. Because, besides, Joseph Smith said that a man is saved no faster than he gains knowledge. I want to keep on gaining knowledge. So I went to my dad right after they told me no about the mission and said, "Can I go to college then?" He said, "No." "Why? Why would you do that?" And I was like, "Because Joseph Smith said that no man is saved faster than he gains knowledge." He's like, "Yeah, but not knowledge to salvation. You're not going to learn anything from a liberal professor. Plus, you're going to be on the devil's ground and stuff like that." And I was like, "But I want to go." He's like, "Go talk to grandfather." So he took me to grandfather again. And I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to mission. Can I go to college?" He's like, "What did your father say?" "He said to come talk to you." "Well, what do you want to go for?" And well, he first gave me the warnings. Like there was this guy, Therrell Timpson, that was this good kid in the community. And then he went for some music thing and then he turned gay and left. That was literally, that was the conversation. That was literally the conversation. And
Oh yeah, yeah. They
And
really
it was
let
like,
down a lot of gay
whoa. And,
people.
and so he was like worried that I was going to go gay or something or leave the community. I was like, no, 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 I
I
believe. And I
mean,
did.
I
Yeah,
mean,
clearly.
you left, so
Yeah. And
he was
he's like, you're
probably
going to start,
right.
he's like, you're going to wear short sleeves, like Thera will short sleeves. And I say, I promise I'll never wear short sleeves ever if I go. Yeah. He gave me this warning conversation. Like, what, like it's not been historically, anybody going to college has not been a good idea.
Uh huh.
It's a slippery slope. And
Yeah.
then he says, well, what would you want to go for anyway? And I said, business. And then he looks off and was like, you know what? It might be good for a Wayman to have a business degree, because all of my family was in construction. They might have had
Yeah.
like a plumbing degree or an electrician degree. In fact, that was most of the, you know how kids say, do you want to be a doctor or an
Yeah.
attorney? Or the question when I was a teenager was like, do you want to be a plumber or a concrete person or a framer? Like, those were your options. It was like, what
Yeah.
part of construction do you want? Are you going to be a plumber and deal with shit, or are you going to be an electrician? And those were really my two options all the way up until this idea of going to college. I was going to either be like a freaking, and then at one point they were like, do you want to be a teacher and work at a new school that we're going to make? And I was like, no, I want to do my own thing. But it was like a electrician or plumber. And so when I told my grandfather that I wanted to go for business, he was like, you know, that's probably a good idea. And so this was like the compromise of me not going on a mission, was that I was going to go get a business degree. But then he gave me things that I had to agree with. He's like, hey, he gave me this whole lecture on being on the devil's ground, which I had heard over the pulpit over and over. It's
Right.
like, the devil's going to tempt you. The devil doesn't tempt regular Gentiles because he already has their soul.
Yeah.
So who
Not
gets
as hard.
tempted the most? We do. And Waymans knew more. So Waymans were going to be especially tempted. So he was like, so you got to really protect yourself, wear your long underwear, but also no extracurricular activities. Go to classes, go home. Nothing outside of classes. So that's what made me go. And the thing that, like me getting what I call the crack was an accident. Because yes, I'm going to like better myself, but I had to take general education. And so I end up taking a philosophy class. And I don't know if the philosophy class was fully required or if it was simply the time slot that I needed to hit a certain credit.
Uh-huh.
But I'll never forget it. Like, it was a single class, a single story. I mentioned it a little bit on when you were on my show, Cultured Boy. Have you watched any movies at this point? Like,
I've
have you
watched
seen
like
some?
a few.
Have you seen The Matrix yet?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Dude, you probably, like, The Matrix is like actually pretty dope for how
Yeah.
you and I were raised.
Yeah.
So The Matrix, my entire semester in this philosophy class was themed off of The Matrix, the movie. And my professor tells us that the story of The Matrix is actually connected to a very much older story in Plato's time, known as Plato's Allegory of the Cave.
Uh-huh.
So here's the quick version of this story, because this is
Yeah.
literally the day that I get the crack in my entire worldview, that I literally would not be here sitting with you had I not heard this story. At least not now. It probably would have taken way longer. I'm in college, probably my first week at Salt Lake Community College. This was before I even went to the University of Utah. And how the story goes is there are these people inside of a cave, chained. And my professor, Jane Drexler, shout out Jane Drexler, would sit on her desk and talk to us. And I was front and center. And there might not have even been the two desks to the side of anybody in it. So everybody else was behind me. So when she was talking, I felt like she was talking directly to me. And sometimes she
She
was. I would
was.
just, yeah, I would just, and I would talk to her like she was. And so she tells us this story. She sets up the story and says, so these people are chained inside of a cave. It's where they've been their entire life. Now, forget the fact that they can't use the bathroom and stuff like that for the story. Just ignore that. She's like, what's their emotional state? Are they sad? And I'm like, yeah, they're very sad. And she was like, why, Calvin? Why are they sad? I was like, because they're prisoners. They're chained. And she was like, no, they're not. They don't feel that way at all. It's like, what? Well, they're prisoners. And she's like, no, they feel like how we feel right now. She's like, I was like, how's that? How could that be possible? She's like, because it's all they know. They've never been free enough to know that this is prison. I'm like, interesting. And so my brain is already, the wheels are turning. And then she continues the story of how Plato told it was once a day, shadows would appear on the wall in front of them. Shadows were the happiest moment inside the cave, because shadows were to the people in the cave ultimate reality. They meant something about life. So they would argue about what the shadows meant. They would say, oh, this shadow means that, and stuff like that. Like, it brought life to the cave. But then one day in this story, one of the people just somehow happened to break loose from the chains. When he broke loose, he noticed that there was a back wall, and whenever the shadows would appear, there would be this glow behind the back wall. So through curiosity, he goes and peeks behind the back wall for the first time and sees that the shadows were being created by someone holding up shapes in front of a flame. It blew the person's brain, because if you can imagine that he thought, no, shadows were ultimate reality. And then he sees this is what's creating it. So it's like, what? Then he sees a crack in the wall, and he goes out and leaves the cave. So if you can imagine that he thought, like, let's say the shadow of a tree. He thought the shadow of a tree was ultimate reality. Yeah. And then he sees that it's created by the shape of a tree. Well, then he sees a real tree. A 3-dimensional tree with the different colors of leaves, different shapes. Like, again, his entire identity is shattered because everything he thought he knew was not true. And my professor's telling us this story with this level of animation of like what it's like. And I'm like, this is just so interesting. It's such a cool story. And then after the person is terrified, he explores the world and sees that this is awesome. There's so much more to life that I almost missed, and tastes everything. And then finally in the story, the person's like, wait, I've been enjoying all this real amazing life, but I still have friends and family down in the cave. Yeah. They need to know about this. So it goes back to the cave. He stumbles because his eyes had now adjusted to light in the outside world. And because he stumbles, people in the cave first like, hey, where you been? Are you blind? They think the person's gone blind. He's like, no, my eyes have just adjusted to something else. And of course, they have no frame of reference. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, let me tell you, there's this whole outside world. And he tries to explain what he's seen, and that there's so much more than than what they have ever experienced or known. But what do they think? They don't have any frame of reference, so they think he's gone crazy.
Yes.
And it's, by the way, just as a side tangent, this story is so bananas how it connects to you and I.
Okay,
and
but it's so true.
It's so true. It's so true. How the fuck did Plato know how to do this? But anyway, so how the story ends, which is somewhat tragic, is he's trying to explain what's out there. And then finally in frustration, somebody says, no, you've gone crazy. Besides, what could be better than the shadows that we have? And he says, no, you're not understanding what I'm saying. What I've seen, what's real, compared to the shadows are nothing. It's fake. The shadows are a projection. The shadows are nothing compared to what's real.
Yeah.
And then the people say, wait, is he trying to take away our shadows? They felt threatened.
Yeah.
And because they feel threatened, they kill him.
Uh-huh.
My professor tells us that story. And then she says, in fact, before I ask the question, what she asked, she had asked several questions, but something that is big in fundamentalist Mormonism and Mormonism in general, I'm curious if you guys had this, is like this like putting on a pedestal, like we believe that we had the full truth. Yes, the full keys to the gospel, but we had the truth, right? We had the truth.
No doubt.
That's why we exist, is we have the truth. Did you guys have the Truth magazines too? Or
We
no?
didn't read them probably like you guys did.
Yeah. But there was literally magazines about fundamentalist Mormonism that were called Truth.
Right.
So I grew up being like, I'm so lucky that we have the truth. I'm like, literally, when I spoke in church, it was essentially my talk at 17. Was like, I'm so lucky that we know the truth. The rest of the world's deluded. Warren Jeffs group's deluded. The Kingstons are deluded. Like, we have the truth, and I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
So then my professor asks, okay, where are you right now in this story?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean, where am I? She's like, how do you know? What if you're in a cave? Huh? She's like, how do you know? Like, what if are you in a cave? I was like, no. Like, I'm having this conversation with myself. It's like, no, of course not. What do you mean? She's like, do you love truth? And at that point, I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. Are you willing to leave everything you've ever known in pursuit of it? It's like, whoa. Do I love it that much? I'm starting to wonder, do I? Do I love it enough that I would want to leave? Like, and then this is where she really got me. She was like, maybe you're studying truth. Maybe you're studying truth right now. And I thought, yeah, I am. Like, I read the books. I go to church. She's like, maybe you're already studying truth. And I'm thinking, yeah. And she's like, well, what if you think what you're studying is truth? What if it's just other people's projections? And what you're really doing is studying shadows. It's like you're studying shadows on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what she did or how she did it, but it was something in the way she asked it and the line that she asked it where it shook me to I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like, whenever I go back to there, I get goosebumps again because, like, literally, because I remember the terror. Because that was the first time in my life where I was like, holy fuck. I didn't. It was the first time in my life where I was like, everything that I knew, I did not know for sure because it wasn't from me. It wasn't something that I had internally discovered. It was from my dad. It was from my grandfather. And even the things that I studied, it was from the books they told me to study. It was the books that they said read. And so there was something in there. I was like, whoa. Even if I was, because again, she told me, like, how do you, like, they don't know that they're in a cave. It's where they've always been. I'm like, fuck, I've always been here. How do I know? And what if the thing I'm studying is truth? None of it was from outside of what I've always known. So how do I know? It's not that I didn't even think that it was wrong necessarily.
Yeah.
The thing that created the crack is I just didn't know that it was it was just the first time I realized, wait a minute, I'm in something and I've never been in anything besides this. And if it was wrong, there's no way for me to know right now that it's wrong because I'm only seeing what they're telling me to see. I trust my dad. I love my dad. I love my grandfather. I love the church. I think I know the truth. But the thing that terrified me is I didn't know for sure why I knew it, except they told me that it was true. And it was the first time in my life I was like, holy shit, I am learning. I hope I'm looking at the actual real tree, but for all I know, I'm looking at a shadow.
Yeah.
That's what created the crack. It was
That's awesome.
freaking terrifying.
And that is why they don't want you to go to college. That is why they don't want you to have more exposure to the outside world. That's why they keep you so sheltered. And the crazier it is, the more they need to keep you sheltered, the more they
Yep.
need to keep you from seeing anything else so that you don't think maybe that's reality.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I've thought of it differently over the years, and sometimes I go one way or the other. It's really interesting because something I often ask myself is how many people are required to make a cult happen? Like how many beliefs have to exist? Because you start pulling back the layers, it gets really wonky fast. You're like, this is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy. Something we talked about on my show with your part one is how many chances you get to really see like inconsistencies and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually take a whole lot to blind you from all of it. It usually just takes either one person or one really good lie. Like, you just have to believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet. Like, that's it. That's all. If you can believe that, if you can believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet, that he saw God in Jesus, you can be logical about everything else. Everything else can
Yeah.
make sense. Everything else can look clean. And I think the same thing was with me. Like, yeah, they probably controlled it and they didn't want me to see it, but they also, like, I know for sure that my dad, I've different questions with my grandfather because he had more lived experience, and I think some of his stuff was actually quite culty. But my dad was pretty sincere, even though he
Oh
did some
yeah.
pretty wild stuff. He really believed that
Yeah.
he was doing the right thing. He really believed that he saw people in the outside world that fell away. And so he really believed that not having any of his kids go to college was for our own soul.
Right.
Something else you mentioned on my show that we heard all the time growing up is, in fact, my dad might have even said it, falling away. He's like, I would rather bury you than fall away.
Mm-hmm.
That's my concern. Because if you die, I mean, we have the same stories. So I know you've heard about the pre-existence and we're in the
Yeah.
testing zone and then for our eternity. And so we come here for this testing round, and life, eternity is so big. So why mess it up? It's how you were able to go against your instincts and like not kiss a girl or have sex or anything else, because it's just such a small sliver that if you can get through this one little part of life, then you'll have happiness forever. You can have sex with your spiritual wife
Yeah.
or wives or whatever the priest would give you in this life and stuff like that. So just hold out and pass the test now.
A
It's
hundred percent.
so it's so wild to me. Like, the more
It
we're out
is.
of it, it's fascinating. It's sometimes the more I'm out of it. And you've been out 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It's been 7 for me, which is not that much longer. Um, the more I'm out of it, though, I'm getting to a point where I'm like in a different life, and as I look back, I'm like, I can't believe that's what we were in. That's
Oh,
so crazy.
I am so that way too. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I feel like I'm back, and I'm just like, I cannot believe this really happened. What on earth is going on?
Yep.
Type of a thing. Um,
Mine is like I wake up sometimes fearing that I'm going to be pulled back. That's my fear. Is that something's going to happen and I'm going to be forced to go back. That's my fear.
damn.
I'm going to lose all of my money and freedom and then I'll have
Uh
to
huh.
go back. That's kind of
Yeah.
my subconscious fear.
Um.
Yeah.
So so you go to college. This,
Graduate.
well, at the beginning of college, like, really makes you think about being
Yep.
there, and
Yep.
then you go through college,
Yep.
and then what happens?
So because of the crack, I become an intense study person. I read
Through
everything I can get my
college.
hands on. Yep, through college, I'm reading everything about Warren Jeffs already because I'm now questioning everything, and I'm doing it very secretly. Like, nobody in my family knows that I'm questioning. No one.
What
I'm
does your
still doing.
dad and those guys think of Warren Jeffs at this time?
Oh, that he is a fallen prophet. Like, um, we had pretty wild stories. My uncles and stuff heard stories of your dad being a pedophile before he was even married.
Oh, really?
So, in fact, one of my uncle, well, he's what's his name? There's this guy that died. His name is Jaden Jeffs, I want to say. That he made my uncle promise that if he ever had the chance to take out Warren, he would.
Wow.
And this was before Warren was even arrested. Because he said, like the story goes again, I don't know exactly the details, but it sounds like that your dad did more than with girls. The rumors that we grew up around is that he did stuff to boys too when he was teaching them in some school that was in Salt Lake, and that some of my family members were victims, or at least my family knew of other victims that were boys. So they did not like him at all. They didn't like him for a long time. My dad would always joke that there was one time where he wrestled Warren in school, and he said I should have. I had the feeling that when I was wrestling him that I should give him a really hard noogie or something, and he wishes that he would have done something like that because then maybe he would have done less damage if he would have like been a little bit more rougher with him when they were wrestling.
Sure.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so you go through college, you're reading about dad and all these other things. Then what
Reading
happened?
everything I can on Joseph Smith, but I'm going through the motions. I'm going through the process. I graduate. I get in a car wreck, which I think helped me actually get on the radar of like the apostles and whatever. Because I get in a car wreck with a couple Timpson kids and roll the car going off I-15, going 80 miles an hour. The car ends up on its side, and
Uh-huh.
we all three crawl out. And I was wearing the long underwear. And so I was like, that was now like a testimony building moment for me and other people.
Let's
That it's,
go.
yeah, I was wearing the garments. And then that was like in July. And then sometime by the end of August, I was already given the name of the person I was going to be married to.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
old were you?
Almost turning 25.
Okay, so you took
So
how
going
many
to college
years in
shaved
college?
off 4.
4 years, and then you get in
Yeah.
this wreck, and then you find out who you're going to marry.
Yep.
Okay, and how does this go? We got to hear this marriage story. I like
Okay.
marriage stories. I like
Dude,
cult
my
marriage
marriage story
stories.
was actually quite interesting. We're not married anymore, but the way dude, it was
Wait, did you
actually,
divorce when you
yeah.
left her? Did she
Oh,
leave?
after. No, she's still in it.
Oh, she's still there. Okay,
Yeah, she's still there.
that's why.
She's yeah.
Who did she?
Uh,
I'm sure she got married to somebody else, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
how'd you know? How'd you know? Look at you.
Of course she did.
Of course. So my marriage story is actually quite bonkers
Okay, let's hear
because
it.
I
I
I
want to
haven't
hear a
shared this
love
on my show,
story.
I don't think. Okay, so I I graduate, I'm ready to advance in life, and after church, I don't know if you guys did the handshaky thing. Definitely
Yeah,
the
yeah.
generation. Okay, so we did the handshaky thing. So after church, everybody shakes hands with like the apostles, and I'm going through the line, and I talked to the president of priesthood, John Timpson. He's like, "See me in the back room," and I'm like, "Holy shit, it's happening!" And so I sit in there, and he's like asking me questions, like worthiness questions, like, "Have you been clean? Do you know any girls? Have you done anything with girls?" And I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope." And he's like, "Are you ready to get married?" And I'm like, I said something like, "Only if it's an arranged marriage, an appointment marriage," because that's what I wanted. I was like, I want what God wants, and so you want an appointment marriage. And of course, I had thought about for years who I was going to marry. Like, who is it? Is it this girl? Is it that girl? Like, God's never going to give you somebody that you wouldn't get along with. Like, I really believe that. It's like, if you're a good kid, then God's going to give you someone that you absolutely adore and are going to get along with. And it's like, okay, go talk to this guy about this girl. And it jolts me because, no offense to her, I just knew who she was and we were not compatible at all. Like, I knew who she was in the town. Like, really? After all this time? Like, I was such a good kid through college or through teenage years, never dated. Like, I fell in love with a girl once and like got my heart broken, but it was all just because when you fall in love when you're a teenager, which is your hormones, you think that it's God giving you a revelation. And so
Sure.
I went through that and
You do that when you're older too.
Exactly. You're so right.
If you're still in there.
You're so right. In fact, my dad ended up doing that a couple of times. Yeah, going and telling the priesthood that I think this person belongs to me because I have the feeling. But he gives me the name, and I'm like, and I remember walking out feeling kind of shitty, but also being like, maybe this is a test. Just like everybody has. I'm like, well, you know what? And this is the wild thought that I had. Maybe just the first one's not as great, you know? Because my dad had 4 wives. Like, I was going to have at least 3 or 4. And so maybe I just have to get through the first wife, and then maybe in a year or 2, I'll get one that's a little bit more compatible. Like, that's
the first one's not compatible. Big deal. Like,
big deal.
Second one will be.
Yeah, because we were taught in priesthood meeting that you do not turn down blessings. You don't grab blessings. If God's giving you a blessing, you take it.
Yeah.
If you take a blessing, if you go and grab a blessing before God gave it, you're going to be cursed. But if he's offering you something and you don't take it, and especially if it's a wife, if it's a girl, if it's a woman, if you turn her down and then she goes and sins, her sins are also on you. That's sort of what we were told. And so I sort of relaxed.
You probably ain't getting another one for a long time.
100%. 100%.
Yep.
So I get myself to accept this. Doesn't feel great. I'm driving home. My phone rings. It's somebody that I know. He's like, President Timpson is trying to get a hold of you. And I was like, okay. And he gets on the phone and he's like, Calvin, I gave you the wrong name.
That was a test.
Don't. Exactly. Dude, this whole thing. He was like, don't ask for this girl. It's this girl. And dude, I wish I could tell you what it felt like. It felt like night and day. I was like, oh, thank God. And I literally did feel like it was a test. I literally felt like it was a test because the girl that I was given, the name was so much more compatible to me that I knew that it was only because he gave me that name so I could feel like the shift. It genuinely felt good. Like I mean, I don't believe in like the religion or anything else like that, but like if I'm just reflecting on my life story, it literally felt amazing. I was like, holy shit. I felt like the luckiest person in the world. It was so cool because it was a girl that I knew took it as seriously as I did. It was somebody that never dated and I never dated. And I was like, whoa. That actually, the Centennial community, even though it's pretty strict in a lot of ways, it's still looser than FLDS in that I knew kids that dated in school.
Yeah.
In fact, I knew this girl's siblings, and I knew every single one of them dated except her. And I didn't either. So it felt really dope, honestly.
Yeah.
And so, got given the name, talked to her dad. We were married 2 weeks later, which I don't know if FLDS terms, if that's like an eternity, but
yeah, it is.
Yeah, we were married. Yeah, we actually just had what would have been our 13-year anniversary because we were We got married right before 9/11 on 9/10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you, do
Um,
you do you miss her, or do you wish did you want her to come
totally.
out with you?
Yeah. I mean, we have 2 kids. So it's a
Okay,
wild story.
so you
Um,
you you get married.
mhm.
First of all, we need to know how the wedding goes. But you get married, and then
We
you
went
you went to college. You got married, like, so
mhm.
you're still feeling like you need to leave.
Yeah, like I'm questioning everything. And she was actually the perfect person for my evolution because she was the first person I ever shared
Okay.
my doubts with
Uh huh.
of anybody. She was my first genuine safe space. And
Yeah.
she came from a family that was way more open-minded than Wayman's.
Oh,
Like
really?
way more. Like she had siblings that have left. But what was really crazy, this was probably the thing that attracted me to her the most. She had siblings that left and she still loved them. Now I know that that's pretty normal now, like in the world. Like if
Yeah.
family's family. But I remember she had a sister that right before we got married, before I got given that she was the name. Like I didn't hang out with her a lot, but I hung out with her a couple of times because I knew her siblings. And she she had an older sister that left the religion and did something that is probably worse than anything you could possibly do. She married into the LDS church. She married an older dude, divorced dude in the LDS church, and it flipped off. Like her entire family went crazy, except this girl who I married still loved her. And it was really strange for her to have this belief because that wasn't the belief of her parents. So she was this really pure human. Like I care about her a lot. She's the mother of 2 of my kids. The only 2 kids that I know of. But yeah, so what ends up happening is I share all of my doubts. I learn a lot because we're now having conversations. We're sort of doubting together in a way.
Okay.
And and one of the things that really changes things is when I turn 27, I decide to be an entrepreneur. And I do something that nobody in my family had done. And that was leave the bubble. So people had done like work crews and stuff, like North Dakota. It sounds like you guys did that too,
Yeah.
based on, isn't Fargo in North Dakota?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the FLDS construction, we do construction
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So we had something like that in the community, except it was several people doing it.
Yeah.
They would sort of go together. They would come back to church. I was doing my own thing, and I left Utah and went and lived in Southern California.
Oh, really?
She and I and our 1-year-old.
Okay.
Now I can't even begin to tell you how much. Like if that college class was the crack,
Yeah.
moving to California is what blew it wide open.
Uh huh.
Because for the first time, I'm seeing what. Like it's hard to explain, but I mean, I knew California existed,
Yeah.
but going to California from Utah didn't feel like I'm going to California. It felt like I was going to Mars. It felt like a different world.
Yeah. It probably was.
Yeah. And so that really made me really question. In fact, what really messed me up was actually other really good Christian, many of them, but really good humans. Because
Yeah.
you will know this because you were probably raised this way that you had the one true church, right?
Right.
Everything outside was evil, right?
Right.
But then I met good people. Like The reason blessings happened when you're in a fundamentalist church is because you have the priesthood. You have the one true church. You can you can give blessings through the right line of authority.
Yeah.
And I met people that were not only good, not only amazing, they had good things happening in their life. That broke my brain. Like, I was like, how is this happening? And here's something that I think you'll get. I've said this on other shows, and I don't think they totally, but I know you're going to get this. I remember being so confused by it. I was like, wait a minute, good things are happening to these people. Is this the devil trying to trick them? That because we have the right one. And
Right.
so maybe good things are happening just because the devil's trying to keep them wrapped up in it,
Sure.
So there's something similar that you reminded me a lot when you were on Cultured Boy. Like just seeing you go through the process of like those first stages of questioning. At first, it starts with rationalization of like, oh, this is what it means. Maybe it's the devil confusing them. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. But then I start really just daring myself to do things, like talk to them. I dared myself to share where I was from for the first time. Didn't tell anybody all through college.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, whoa, really? I'm like, yeah. And I told them like, but it's good. And at first I'm like defending it and saying this is what it is and why it's amazing. And yeah, I have an arranged marriage, but it's because I want God to be in my life. And I started to share it and they're like, oh, and they were very accepting about it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can tell people without getting thrown to jail. Because we were taught that you're going to go to jail because we have ancestors that have went to jail, right? For living polygamy.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started doing things like go to church. That my business coach in California went, and I was like, well, and it wasn't you're good but you're not good enough talk.
Uh-huh.
It actually was things that felt good. And again, it was scary because it was like, is this getting on the devil's ground? And then I started to realize, wait a minute. My entire life is outside in, just like the cave story, told what to think, what to believe. And I started to be like, what if I did, like, if I was on neutral footing, like, how do I know that ours is right, not the FLDS? Like, I started to really go internal and be like, why do I even want it to be true? Why does the FLDS want it to be true? I'm like, well, they want it to be true because it would be so difficult to think that Warren is a fallen prophet. Well, how do I know that I'm not doing that right now? If I was on neutral footing, would I know that the work is true and not Warren's church? Would I know that ours is true and not the LDS church? And I couldn't say for sure. And then I would notice, wait, why is nobody joining our church? There's so many good people in the world. I'm meeting them. Are they better? Or are they no better than me? Am I better than them? No, it made me uncomfortable to consider now. Now that I met people that were amazing. Like, wait. And then I met my buddy Kevin, who's a black dude. And stories that we've heard about like the seed of Cain.
Yeah.
And the whole story in heaven. Like, do you have that story growing up? The whole story of the sitting on the fence story?
Fence.
Yes. So I'm like, I'm getting to know Kevin. I'm like, I got to ask you something.
Sure.
Because in my head, I'm like, if I know the story about the seed of Cain, he must really know it because he's black.
Okay.
And he must know where his soul comes from.
Yeah.
And I tell him the whole story that you and I both know about the spiritual four in heaven, the third going to Lucifer, the third going to earth, and which is us, but then the third that didn't make a decision, which is the black people. Right? That's the story we were told in Mormonism.
Right.
I tell him the whole thing in detail, and I'm like, Did you grow up hearing that? And Kevin, love you, brother. Kevin Stimson, shout out. He was like, fuck no. I've never heard that in my life. That's insane. And I'm like, really? Because I knew, like, this, it broke my brain because I was like, you've never heard this? And like, first of all, if this is about you, and God is doing this to you, you think you should know, because then you're going to learn from it. And then I started to piece things together. I was like, is this just stories that we're being told? Dude, I went through such a whirlwind. I started to travel. I got my passport and I traveled to different countries. I went to Costa Rica, Israel, Thailand, and I started to realize, in fact, it's all encapsulated in this. I remember this flight home. I was so overwhelmed with everything that I was learning. And I was so terrified, as you were terrified, about accidentally damning myself. And because I was like, I want the truth. But what if I accidentally choose the wrong thing? Because we heard all these stories about, like, the LDS church members got deluded and confused, and now they're gone. And we were taught that the FLDS is now damned. And I was like, what if I'm accidentally doing that to myself? And I remember looking out the window on an airplane, 35,000 feet. And sometimes when you're up high, you'll see like this farmland that looks like a quilt. Like you see like square miles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember imagining Colorado City and Centennial. Colorado City and Centennial are essentially a square mile. Certainly Centennial is. It's like literally a square mile. But it's a small plot of land.
Sure.
And I remember having this image of, I imagine myself being God. And I'm looking down at the ground and I see one little square plot of land, but there's so many others. And I imagine, like, what if I'm God, is only one true? And the rest that I'm looking, like, all those are not true. There's just that one. And that didn't make sense to me. I was like, if I'm God, it also didn't make sense to me that, like, I genuinely wanted to know the truth. Genuinely.
Yeah.
And so it didn't make sense to me that I'm, like, at this point, I'm on like an 8-year journey from the college class till this point, like searching. It didn't make sense to me that there could have been somebody, it could have been me, just eating Cheetos on the sofa going to church, not questioning, and that they're closer to salvation and having their soul saved than somebody like me. And so I remember thinking, like, if I'm wrong, I have to believe that there's a God, the God is merciful enough that he would, somehow, some way give me a little bit of leeway. But I remember the day. I have the audio recording. It's on my phone. I have the audio note of the moment I decided to leave. It takes me a long time to actually say it, but I talk it out with myself and I realize there's so many ways to live. If I was on neutral footing, would I know for sure that this is it? If I was in Warren Jeffs' group, would I obviously know the work was true? And I couldn't say for sure. If I was in the LDS church, would I automatically choose the work? I couldn't say for sure. If I was born in India, would I obviously know this? Because there's so many good people. Do I think that they're better than me? Or do I think that I'm better than them, rather? I'm like, not a chance. At the very least, we're equal. And then I thought about, like, am I better just because I have white skin based on this whole story? And that was so uncomfortable to think, like, how am I somehow better just because of how I was born? We're judged based on our actions and what we do. And then I just say it on the audio note. Like, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to stay. Yeah. I don't believe this. And it was a wild moment, man. It was wild. Took me a long time to say it, but I was like, I think I'm going to, it's just a matter of time. When I imagine myself 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road and staying, it just doesn't feel right. And that's what it came down to, is it just doesn't feel right. I didn't even have all of the right answers. I have the instincts, what I now know. But I connected it all the way back to the Plato story. And I realized that my entire life, again, everything from this is the right church, this is where this is how people got white skin and black skin. Like all of those things, like the people are outside of this are good or bad and we're good. I realized all these are external voices telling me something. But I've lived a little now.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to college. I've talked to people. I've lived. And I'm like, if I'm comparing the experiences, would I come to the same conclusions that I'm being told? Now, I can hear the conclusion and come up with a story as why it's right. Just like you talked about on my show, like you would say, like, your dad would say somebody's dead and then you saw them and then you'd come up with a story, well, maybe it's a test. Like my
Yeah.
brain could still do that. But what I started to ask myself is like, would I have come to that same conclusion on my own? Like, could I come up with the conclusion that the people outside of my community are bad? Could I come up with the conclusion, if I'm on neutral footing, that blessings come to us because we have the priesthood and outside world they don't? Like, what's my direct experience saying? And my direct experience was in direct contradiction to what I was being told. And so I remember also thinking, like, I mean, we have the whole story of like previous existence, the sliver of this life, and then what do we do after this life? And I remember hoping, like, this whole journey was me hoping to prove that the work was true, that that our church is the right church. But if I was being honest with myself, I couldn't see it that way. And so I ended up choosing. I ended up realizing, like, I've got one life. Like, that's the one I know for sure. Like, I hope there's a life after this. I hope there was something before this. But the thing I know for sure, based on my lived experience, is I'm in this life. What am I going to do with this life? And the decision I made that day is I'm going to live the rest of my life instead of externally based, saying projection, like the shadows, I'm going to live it inside out. From this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm genuinely saying, and follow that, even if that means damning my soul. Like, that's what it came to, because as you know, we had that fear. We had the fear that if you messed up.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I mean, that's sort of the conclusion that it takes most people several years to come to.
Me too. I mean, it did.
Yeah, me too. And it's when you realize how many people truly believe that they are right. Like,
Yep.
every bit as much as you believed you were right, I believed we were right, and there's
Yep.
20 other groups close
Yep.
to us that are the very same. How
Yeah, just in
insane is
Mormonism.
that?
Yeah, just in Mormonism. We're not even talking
Right.
yet about Christianity and other churches,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's been a wild journey, man, especially the journey out. It's sort of made me. I said a quote on Twitter recently. I was like, said something like, many of you have not had to escape a cult, and it shows. Because, like, so many people are so certain about their position. And I
Uh-huh.
actually love the fact that you and I got to live that way, that we got
I
to live in certainty and be
yeah,
totally wrong.
I appreciate every minute of it. And most of all that I'm free now, but I don't regret the experience at all.
Yeah.
But hey, I wanted to ask, like, how was your breakup with your wife? Or what happened there?
Yeah. It's sort of sad. So when I started questioning, I started to realize, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was. This was me trying to do the right thing. But then I started to realize there was other experiences that I wasn't ever going to have, and that I never had. For example, I never had the experience of dating someone
Yeah.
and falling in love and getting my heart broken. And I realized I only had one life, and I wanted those things.
Uh-huh.
I also didn't get to choose the person I was with. I wanted to choose. And so we started to have conversations along these lines. Like, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean? Like, do you want to be a polygamist? Because I kind of don't, but I'm curious about other people. Like, I'm curious to, like, I want to know, could I actually date somebody and make them want to go to bed with me? Like, it got down to that. Like, I wanted to know as a man, as a human, I wanted to know. Like, and we went through this whole discovery journey of like exploring things, what we wanted, and we tried things like, do we want to live this way? Like, should we be open? Do we want to live poly? And long story short, it got clear on what each of us wanted. She got to where she was like, you know what? The only thing that matters to me is family. It's all that matters. I don't care if it's culty. I care about my friends and I care about this. And then she even came up with something that, I mean, at the time it surprised me later how she shifted on this, but she had this big thing where she realized, I don't even want polygamy. Like, and I was like, okay, you should have that. Everything that you want, you should have it. And everything I want, I should have. And for me, I wanted to live. I wanted to be a sovereign individual. I wanted to choose my life and not feel compelled by it. I wanted to be single because I'd never been single before. Yeah, it was literally that. Like, I was like, if I have one life, I want to choose the life I'm living, and I want to do it from a place of it is my choice, not if I don't do this, I'm going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And so I broke up. And it was, I mean, at the beginning, it was actually it was hard, but it was quite amicable because it was like, I believe, like, sort of a guiding principle I have with relationships is win-win. I don't believe in doing anything unless it's actually something you genuinely want, because I think if you're not operating from a win-win perspective, where it's a win for you and a win for me, like some people talk about, you should compromise in relationships. And I'm not saying don't ever sacrifice, but if you're going to sacrifice for a person in a relationship, you better fucking want to have done that sacrifice and not feel like you're just evening the score. Because if you don't, you're going to start developing resentment. And the thing I loved about our relationship is we talked about everything. There was nothing that couldn't be talked about. Everything was out on the table. And so we got to get really clear on what each other wanted. And it was a big decision when I came to it, but I was like, the thing that you want, I don't. And so for you to get what you want, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
So that you can have your monogamous marriage, and so that I can have my life where I choose, that I have that I have choice over all of my entire life, that I can, just experience. And I broke up.
I think you made the right decision for sure.
Yeah.
Something I forgot to ask. Did you guys watch movies?
Yeah. Not much though. Like the first time I went to the movie theater, I was 18 or 19. I watched the third Lord of the Rings in the theaters. We grew up not reading books besides scriptures, until one of the church leaders said when I was 18 or 19 that we should be able to read the classics. And I was like, really? And then some people started to, like, my sister talks about my dad walking into the living room once and getting so happy because she was reading a book. And he was like, oh my gosh, because he kept would always try to get us to read scriptures. And then he gets closer and realizes that it's Harry Potter. He's like, what are you doing? So I didn't read non-scriptural books until my last month in college. Like any books.
How many of your siblings are out?
That's such a good question. You know how I said that that cultiness is on a spectrum?
Yeah.
Like some people would say that, I mean, would you disagree that Warren Jeffs' cult is a little bit cultier than the work?
Yeah.
Like your dad's? It's a little cultier. It's a little bit more controlled. I think the same is true with outness.
Sure.
Like some people say they don't go to church and they don't believe it, but they're still in the bubble.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at people that don't go to church anymore, it's probably half of my siblings.
Oh, okay. But
If I'm looking,
it's hard to get to that point that we were talking about where you're like fully realize that everybody truly thinks they're right, and changing your
yeah,
mind is just so difficult.
yeah, yeah, and of those siblings that don't go to church, half of those are younger siblings that started to go to public school and
Oh,
they
okay.
never even bought in. As far as a sibling that's around my age that fully bought in and was homeschooled and got married, I'm the only one.
Hmm.
Like I'm the only one that's living outside of Utah or Arizona. I had a sister that lived out of state for a while and she moved back. Like as far as somebody that's completely out of the bubble, I mean, I'm living in New York City. So,
Yeah.
yeah, as far as like the 45 of us that is like that far out of the spectrum, yeah, I'm it. It's the yeah, that's been the wildest journey, honestly. Like there is as difficult as it was to get to the point of admitting that I don't believe this and this is not the life I want. It's been a wild adventure to find my footing. And I'm finding it now, doing the things that I love and enjoy. But it's wild that it's happening right now when I'm turning 38. Like something that some people get when they're 18. But I'm also learning to love that. Like everybody is like everybody has their own life and there's not one right way. But I've learned some things in the journey. Like I didn't quite get. I wish I had what you had, where you're like you don't regret a second. I was angry, man, when I left. I was
Regret.
so mad.
Oh,
Yeah, you were saying you don't regret a second living in it. I
well,
I wish.
I it's not that I do wish I would have had more experiences and stuff. It's just I don't think I could have the mindset that I have now. I don't think I could have the
That's right.
open mind
100%. 100%.
that I have without it.
100%. And that's where I ultimately got to. When I first left, I was angry and sad and like because there were so many, just how you talked about on my show, Cultured Boy, with how you would do essentially mental gymnastics to
Yeah.
make sense of what your dad said. Same with my dad. My dad did a lot of shit. He was like a cult leader within the cult. And I had all these mental gymnastics. And so once I could then trust what I was sensing and seeing, like there was a lot to unpack when I left, especially being in it for 30 years. And so I went through a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of like, I can't believe if there is such a God that they would put anybody through anything like that. I felt really down. But then I got to a place where I was like, what would life have to look like to make this the best thing that ever happened to me? And I started asking myself ridiculous questions like, what kind of life do I want? Like, what would be amazing? Like, where would I live? What would I do? And then I started to just piece things together. Like, man, I grew up quite sheltered. I want to live a life that I'm experiencing things. Like that'd be dope because humans learn well through contrast. So
That's the only way to learn.
100%. And so I got to a place where within the last year or two, where I'm like, holy shit. And then I started to realize that I have a very different perspective on life than my friends that I've developed
Yeah.
outside of it. And that, and that, and that they appreciate the perspective that I bring. That, because again, when you're in it, and when you're in anything over time, you don't see it. Just a quick example of this. I was just at a retreat over the weekend. And at this retreat, there were private chefs, and every meal they would talk about what the food was, how it was prepared. And it was so good, it made the food amazing. But then we got to appreciate the chefs. And it really touched me. I loved that. And then somebody had asked me, Calvin, I noticed that during the food, like you were especially touched. Why? And I hadn't thought about it for a long time. And I was like, it is so different from the way that I was raised. We had amazing food all the time. Polygamists are good.
Yeah.
But who you thanked in my upbringing was the head of the house. It was only the church or the priesthood leaders. You didn't actually give appreciation to those that prepared it in my upbringing. And so
Mm.
just simple things like that, where getting to appreciate a person for what they contributed to us was great. When after we had a meal, we went and thanked our dad for the meal. We didn't thank the sisters or the
Mm.
mom that prepared it. We thanked the dad. Same when we went over to grandfather's house and there was a big meal. We didn't thank the people in the kitchen. We went to my grandfather and said, "Thank you for being the one to provide this." So there's so many little things. And somebody had made the comment, was like, "Whoa, that's so interesting." Like you would have had that deeper perspective had you not grown up the way that you did. And there's that and a million things. I mentioned the flying thing. The thing I love about New York City is everything is new. Like there's so many good things here. There's a variety of humans, which that is so good for my soul, having grown up one way with one type of human and seeing all different kinds of people that live here in the city, getting to rub shoulders with all different kinds. It's
Yeah, I guess I
my
should
life.
come see you.
You should, man. Because the one thing that this experience has taught me is how freaking, like, genuinely amazing humans are. Like,
Uh-huh.
actually, everybody thinks everybody's horrible, but everybody's
Yeah,
afraid. That's really what it is. Everybody's
that
afraid.
is.
I
Yeah.
used to be afraid, but the more I connect with other people around the world that I thought were scary, like you get into somebody's real story after like 15 minutes, you're like, you're not scary at all.
Yeah.
So New York gives me a chance to do that quite often. So.
Nice. Well, do you have anything? Well, we should shout out your channel and anything you want people to follow you.
Yeah.
Your Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram's Calvin Wayman. My YouTube channel's Calvin Wayman. I do a show called Cultured Boy, which is unpacking this. Which, by the way, you're over there right now. We should
Yeah.
probably put that in the description. Your episode
Oh
for
yeah.
Cultured Boy. I'm also like this will have been done by the time this goes out. I wrote a Substack about our episode, just giving more context on your story and fundamentalist Mormonism for context for both of us, like how we both got to this point. And so maybe we can put that in the description as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just doing that. So yeah, you can go to Calvin Wayman, or youtube.com/official Calvin Wayman is where I'm at there. And yeah, whatever we put in the description for the Substack of our articles.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I would say to fundamentalist people that might be watching this is if you do something like move to California for 6 months, that will give you the opportunity to truly have an open mind. Go
Yep.
somewhere where people think different. I don't care where it is. Go somewhere people think different for
Yes.
6 months, and then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But don't think that you're so right until you do that. And that's the
100%.
challenge I would offer to everybody watching the show.
100%. Go somewhere. And man, you know what I would say? If you're not in a cult, but you've been in the same city for your whole life, same thing.
Same
Like,
thing.
go move somewhere for 6 months, get away from your mom and whoever's telling you how you should think or be, and see if you can figure out who you are.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is like, man, I've seen this so many times, and I have friends that have done it. Like you and I escaped our script. We're writing
Yeah.
our new story now. But the truth is, everybody has a script. Everybody's been given some script, even if it wasn't culty. Everybody was given some script that this is the way you should live. This is what you should do. Maybe go to school for 40 years or go to school for 4 years and then work for 40 hours a week for 40 years and then retire. Or in our family, everybody is in science, or in our family, everybody's in law. In our family, everybody, but you might be a fish that's been trying to climb a tree your whole life, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's given some script. So if there's any takeaway from your story and mine in a sense is like, yeah, it's your life, one life. One life. What are you going to do with it? Like, what can you do? Get away to like learn about who is the person that you happen to spawn into.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been really interesting. It's been fun. It's been so rewarding in the last few years, especially as hard as this is, to figure out who is Calvin. Like, I didn't even know. And in a lot of ways, I'm still learning. And like, my show, Cultured Boy, and everything else is like just an extension of, wait, I think this sounds like something that I'm into.
Yeah.
Moving to New York. So, yeah, highly validate what you're saying. Like, getting on some neutral ground, finding out who you are.
Yeah. Well, Calvin, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you
Any
so much, brother.
last things to say to the audience before we go?
Stay hungry. Stay curious.
Stay hungry, stay curious. Thanks everybody for watching. Like and subscribe. Go subscribe to Calvin's YouTube channel. It'll be linked in the description below. Like his Substack. I have a Substack linked in the description below. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.